The sky over Argus was not blue, it was the color of a dying bruise, purple, heavy, and suffocating. King Acrisius stood upon the high battlements, his fingers white-knuckled as they gripped the cold stone. He was a man possessed by a single terrifying thought, a prophecy, a whisper from the oracle that refused to die. Your grandson will be your end, he will strike you down and take your crown. Acrisius did not wait for fate to knock. He built a prison, not of stone, stone can be scaled, not of wood, wood can be burned. He built a chamber of solid, cold, gleaming bronze. He buried it deep, deep beneath the earth, and there he threw his only daughter, Danae. Imagine the sound, the heavy thud of the bronze door sealing shut, the click of the bolt, and then silence. Danae lived in a world of metallic echoes. The air tasted of copper. The only light came from a narrow slit in the ceiling, a tiny, mocking strip of the world she had lost. She spent her days tracing the rivets in the walls. She spent her nights praying to gods who seemed as cold as the floor beneath her. But the gods, they are never truly silent. One afternoon, the air in the chamber changed. It grew thick, heavy. It hummed with a low, vibrating frequency that made Danae's teeth ache. The light from the ceiling didn't just shine, it liquefied. Slowly, drip by drip, a rain began to fall, but it was not water, it was gold. Molten, shimmering, ethereal gold. It pooled at her feet. It swirled around her ankles like a warm tide. It was Zeus, the king of Olympus, appearing not as a man, but as a shower of pure radiance. The bronze room was no longer a tomb, it was a temple. In that golden light the hero was conceived, Perseus, a child of bronze and starlight, a boy born into a prison, but destined to shatter the world. Outside, the wind began to howl. Acrisius felt a chill in his marrow. He thought he had cheated death. He thought the bronze would keep the future at bay. He was wrong. The gods had entered his fortress, and the countdown to his destruction had finally begun. The bronze door didn't just open. It screamed, a long, piercing, metal-on-metal shriek that tore through the silence of the underground tomb. King Acrisius stood in the threshold. His eyes were bloodshot. His crown sat crooked on a brow slick with cold sweat. He looked down, and he saw it. A child, a boy with eyes that mirrored the storm clouds gathering above Argus. The king did not see a grandson. He saw a dagger, pointed directly at his own throat. Take them, he rasped. His voice was a dry rattle. Take them to the shore, now. The soldiers moved like ghosts. They dragged Danae and the infant Perseus from the warmth of their bronze prison, out into the biting, salt-stung air of the Aegean coast. There, waiting on the sand, was a box, a great, heavy chest made of dark cedar. It looked like a coffin. It was a coffin. Acrisius didn't have the stomach to spill royal blood with a blade. No, he was a coward. He would let the sea do his dirty work. Danae didn't scream. She didn't beg. She gripped her son to her chest, her knuckles white, her breath hitching in the cold. They were forced inside. The wood was rough. It smelled of pitch and old resin. Then the lid came down, thud, dark, total, suffocating dark. And then the sensation of movement. The chest was lifted, carried, and with a sickening, heavy splash, it hit the water. The current was a monster. It grabbed the wooden box and dragged it away from the shore. Inside, it was a nightmare of sound. The waves hammered against the cedar. Boom, 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 like a giant's fist trying to break in. The box pitched, it rolled. Danae felt the freezing spray leaking through the cracks in the lid. "Shhh, little one," she whispered. Her voice trembled, vibrating against the boy's forehead. The sea is just a cradle, the wind is just a song. Hours turned into days. Time didn't exist. There was only the smell of salt, the sound of the abyss, and the constant, terrifying rocking of their tiny wooden world. They were a speck of dust in the palm of Poseidon, one rogue wave, one sharp rock, and the story of Perseus would have ended before it truly began. But the gold in the boy's veins, it hummed, it glowed with a faint, invisible heat. The gods were watching. Finally, the movement changed. The violent tossing stopped. The box slowed. It bumped against something soft, something solid, sand. The lid didn't open by itself. It was pulled. Sunlight, blinding, golden, glorious sunlight, flooded the interior. A man stood over them. He wasn't a king. He wasn't a soldier. He was a fisherman. Dictys was his name. He looked down into the chest, expecting treasure or perhaps a drowned sailor. Instead, he found a miracle, a woman, shivering but defiant, and a child who looked up at him and did not cry. They were on the island of Seriphos. They were safe, for now, but as Perseus stepped out onto the warm sand, The shadow of the tyrant was already beginning to stretch across the sea. The boy was alive, but the debt of the prophecy was still waiting to be paid. Years, they passed like grains of sand through a glass. The boy was no longer a child of the bronze room. Perseus had grown, his shoulders were broad, his eyes, they were the color of the deep, churning Aegean. He was a fisherman's son now, a man of the nets, and the salt, and the sun. But Seriphos was not a paradise, it was a cage, and the man who held the key was King Polydex. Polydex was a shark in a silk robe. He watched Danae from his high balcony, his eyes hungry, his mind twisting with dark, possessive thoughts. He wanted her, he wanted the mother, but he feared the son. He saw the way Perseus stood. He saw the strength in the young man's grip. He knew he could not take her by force while the lion was guarding the gate. So he laid a trap, a banquet, a feast of lies. The great hall was a cavern of flickering torchlight. The smell of roasted meat and heavy fermented wine hung thick in the air. All the lords of Seriphos were there. They brought gifts, magnificent glittering tributes, horses, bred for war, gold, hammered into thin, delicate leaves. Perseus stood in the center of the hall. His hands were empty. His pockets were filled with nothing but dust. Polydex smiled. It was the smile of a man who had already won. "And you, Perseus?" The king's voice rang out, echoing off the marble pillars. "What have you brought for your king? Where is your tribute? Or is the son of Zeus truly just a beggar?" The room went silent. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the soft, mocking laughter of the courtiers. Perseus felt the blood rush to his face. It burned. It was a heat that didn't come from the hearth, it came from his core. He looked at his mother, sitting pale and trembling at the king's side. He looked at Polydex's sneering mouth. "I have no horses," Perseus said. His voice was low, dangerous, a rumble of thunder before the storm. "But I will bring you a gift that no man in this room would dare to touch." Polydex leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. A gift? What gift could a fisherman offer a king? Perseus stepped into the light. He didn't blink. The head of Medusa. The silence that followed was heavy. It was a physical weight. Medusa, the Gorgon, the monster whose face turned men to stone, the nightmare that lived at the very edge of the world. To ask for her head was to ask for a death sentence. Polydex let out a long, slow, whistling breath. He had his opening. "Then go," the king whispered. "Go, and do not return without it. If you fail, your mother belongs to me." Perseus turned. He didn't look back. He walked out of the hall, out of the light, and into the darkness of the docks. He had made a vow, a rash, impossible vow. He was a man with a sword of bronze and a heart of fire, walking straight into the jaws of a god. The feast continued, but for Perseus, the world had just turned to ice. The shore was cold, the sea was a black abyss, swallowing the light of the moon. Perseus stood on the jagged rocks, alone. The weight of his vow sat on his chest, like a mountain of lead. Medusa, how could a man, a mortal man, kill what he cannot even look at? He gripped his head in his hands. He felt small. He felt like a fool. But then, the air didn't just move, it shimmered, it hummed, with a sound like 1,000 silver bells, ringing at once. The darkness was torn apart by a light, so sharp, so pure, it made the salt air taste like ozone. "You look lost, little brother." Perseus spun around. His hand flew to the hilt of his rusted knife. Standing on the sand was a man, but not a man. He moved with a grace that was impossible. He wore a traveler's cloak and sandals with wings, real, feathered wings that fluttered like a heartbeat in his hand. He held a staff wrapped with 2 serpents of gold, Hermes the messenger, the thief of souls. And beside him stood a woman. She was tall. Her armor was the color of a winter sky. Her eyes were the gray of a storm, piercing, wise, and terrifyingly cold. Athena, the goddess of war. Perseus fell to his knees. The sand felt like ice against his skin. "Stand up, son of Danae," Athena commanded. Her voice was not a whisper, it was a bell, tolling in a cathedral. "We do not help those who crawl, we help those who strike." Hermes stepped forward. His smile was a silver blade. "You need more than a fisherman's luck, Perseus. You need the tools of the immortals." He reached into the air and pulled out a sword. It wasn't made of bronze, it was adamant. It glowed with a faint, blue, ethereal light. "This will cut through the Gorgon's scales like a hot wire through wax." Then Athena moved. She unslung a shield from her shoulder. It was polished, perfect, a mirror, made of celestial bronze. "Do not look at her," Perseus, to look is to die. Look only at the reflection, watch the mirror, and you will see the monster without becoming a statue. The gifts didn't end there. Hermes whispered of the Gree, the three old hags who knew the way to the nymphs who held the cap of darkness and the winged shoes. Perseus took the shield. He felt the weight. It was heavy, but it was a weight that gave him strength. He looked into the polished surface. He saw his own face, but it looked different, older, harder. The path is long, Perseus, Hermes warned. The god's wings began to beat faster, lifting him inches off the ground. Go to the north, find the sisters, and remember, the gods give you the blade, but you must provide the courage. With a sudden, violent flash of light, they were gone. The shore was silent again, but Perseus was no longer alone. He had the steel of the heavens in his hand, and the wisdom of the gods in his mind. The hunt had officially begun. The wind did not blow here, it bit, it chewed. It was the edge of the world, where the sun was a distant memory, and the fog was a thick gray shroud. Perseus trudged through the frozen slush. His breath came in ragged, white plumes of frost. He was looking for the Gree, the gray ones, the sisters of the Gorgons, who had lived in the twilight since the dawn of time. Then he heard it, a sound, a wet, clicking, slurping noise like 100 beetles crawling over a dry bone. Click, click, scrape. He rounded a jagged pillar of ice, and there they were, three shapes, huddled together. They looked like piles of dirty snow. Wrapped in moldy gray rags, they had no hair. Their skin was translucent, like a dead fish, and they were fighting. Give it to me, my turn, give it to me, and yo. One sister reached out with a gnarled, claw-like hand. She snatched something from the air, a small, wet, round object. It was their eye, their only eye, one single, milky, staring orb shared between three heads. They passed it back and forth, squelch. They shoved it into an empty, weeping socket, and for a second they could see, then they ripped it out again. Perseus felt his stomach turn. He gripped the hilt of his sword. He didn't breathe. He moved like a shadow, creeping across the frozen ground. Closer, closer. He could smell them now. They smelled of ancient dust and stagnant water. I see a flicker, the middle sister screeched. She jammed the eye into her head. A spark, a flame in the mist. Who is there? The other two hissed, their toothless mouths snapping at the air. A man, a mortal, give me the eye, let me see him. As the middle sister reached up to pull the eye from her skull, Perseus struck. He didn't use his blade, he used his speed. His hand flashed out like a viper. Snatch, he caught the eye right out of the air. The screaming began instantly, a high, piercing, nails-on-a-chalkboard wail. Where is it, my eye, my beautiful crystal eye? Give it back, thief. They stumbled toward him, their hands clawing at the empty fog. They were blind, they were helpless, they were terrified. Perseus stood his ground. He held the wet, pulsing eye high above his head. I have it, he shouted. His voice was a crack of thunder in the silence. And I will crush it into the ice, unless you tell me what I need to know. Anything, we will tell you anything. Just give us our sight, please. Tell me where the nymphs are, Perseus demanded. The ones who guard the cap of darkness, the ones who hold the sack for the Gorgon's head. Tell me, or you will live in the dark forever. The sisters huddled together, shivering, weeping, their secrets spilling out of them like poison. They told him. They gave him the coordinates of the hidden garden. They gave him the path through the mountains of the north. Perseus didn't wait. He tossed the eye back into the snow. As the three hags scrambled, screaming, into the slush to find their precious orb, Perseus was already gone. The path was clear, the weapons were waiting, and the Gorgon was getting closer. The north was not a place, it was a fever dream, a land where the sun did not set, but hovered like a pale, bleeding eye on the horizon. Perseus climbed, higher, higher. The air grew thin, it tasted of silver and ancient, frozen silence. He reached the hidden garden of the nymphs. It was a valley of glass. Every tree, every leaf, every blade of grass was encased in a skin of crystal. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. And there they were, the Stygian nymphs. They were not creatures of flesh and bone. They were made of moonlight and shifting water. They drifted through the frozen trees like ghosts, their hair trailing behind them like silk in a stream. The son of the golden rain, the tallest one whispered. Her voice was the sound of a glacier cracking, miles away, the one who brings the blade of the gods to the neck of the monster. Perseus did not speak, he bowed, he held out his hands, palms up. The nymphs did not move at first. They circled him, they sniffed the air, smelling the sweat and the fear and the destiny that clung to him like a second skin. Then they reached into the roots of a crystal oak. They brought him 3 things. First, the kibices, a sack made of skin, but not animal skin. It was tough, it was thick, it was heavy with a weight that defied gravity. To hold the head, the nymph said, for even in death, the Gorgon's gaze is a weapon of stone. Second, the teleria, the sandals of Hermes, as Perseus strapped them to his feet. The wings on the heels began to flutter, thrum, 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 like the heart of a trapped bird. He felt light, he felt like the earth was no longer his master. And finally, the prize, the cap of darkness, the helm of Hades. It was a simple cap, dark as a moonless night. Perseus took it. He felt a chill run down his spine. It was a cold that didn't come from the ice, it came from the underworld. Put it on, the nymph commanded. Perseus pulled the leather over his brow. In an instant, the world vanished. He looked down at his hands, but they were gone. He looked at his feet, but the snow did not crunch beneath them. He was a shadow, he was a whisper, he was nothing. Now you are ready, the nymphs sang in unison. Their voices faded, drifting away into the mist. Go to the west, go to the island of the Gorgons, go, before the sun finds its way home. Perseus didn't walk, he flew. The winged sandals caught the wind. He soared over the frozen peaks, over the black, churning oceans, over the very edge of the map. He was a ghost in the sky, invisible, silent, and lethal. The garden of glass was gone, the nymphs were gone. Ahead, through the clouds, lay the island of the dead. The destination was Medusa, and the time for hiding was almost over. The island did not have a name, it didn't need one. It was a rib of jagged, black, volcanic rock, thrusting out of a sea that refused to break. There were no birds here, no gulls, no crickets, no life, only the wind, and the wind, it didn't whistle, it hissed. Perseus landed softly, his boots hit the ash, but made no sound. He was still wearing the cap of darkness. He was a ghost, walking among the dead. Then he saw them, the statues. They weren't statues, not really, they were men, frozen, in the middle of a scream, a soldier, reaching for a sword that was now a block of granite, a poet, his mouth open, his eyes wide with a terror that had lasted 1,000 years, a child, huddled against a rock, turned to cold, gray, moss-covered silt. They were everywhere, a forest of stone, an army of the lost. Perseus felt a cold sweat break out on his neck. He didn't look up, he didn't dare, he looked down, at the shield, the mirror of Athena. In the polished bronze, the world was different. It was amber, it was gold, and it was moving. He saw a shadow, a long, serpentine, heavy shadow, dragging itself across the temple floor. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It was the sound of 1,000 dry leaves being crushed under a giant's boot. The Gorgons, Medusa's sisters, Estheino and Uriel, they were asleep, their massive, brass-clawed wings folded over their bodies like burial shrouds. Their breath was a toxic, sulfurous, yellow mist. But Perseus wasn't looking for them, he was looking for the third sister, the mortal one, the one who had once been beautiful, before the curse of the goddess turned her hair into a nest of vipers. He moved deeper into the temple, the air grew thick, it smelled of rotting meat and wet copper. And then he heard the sound, sibilance, a chorus of tiny, angry, clicking tongues. In the reflection of his shield, he saw her, Medusa. She wasn't a monster, not at first glance. She was sitting on a throne of broken marble, her back to him. Her skin was the color of a bruised plum. Her shoulders were delicate, trembling, as if she were weeping. But then she moved, the hair on her head. It didn't fall, it writhed. Hundreds of small, emerald green, diamond-backed snakes twisted and coiled around each other. They tasted the air, they sensed the heat, they knew a hunter was in the room. Perseus gripped the adamant blade. His knuckles were white, his heart was a drum, beating against his ribs. Thump, thump, thump. I know you are there, little hero, a voice whispered. It wasn't a monster's voice, it was a woman's, sad, ancient, and infinitely tired. Why have you come? To join my collection? Why have you come? To die? Perseus didn't answer, he couldn't. He looked only at the shield. He saw the snakes rise, their hoods flaring, their fangs dripping with a clear, deadly venom. The Garden of Stone was waiting for its next inhabitant. The mirror was his only map, and the strike had to be perfect. The air in the temple was dead. It didn't move, it didn't breathe, it only smelled of sulfur and the ancient, cold dust of those who had come before. Perseus held the shield. His arm was shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment, the weight of fate. In the bronze reflection, he saw Medusa rise. She didn't turn around, not yet. She moved with a slow, fluid, terrifying grace, like a cobra coiled and ready to snap. The snakes on her head, they were a frenzy now, a tangled, writhing, emerald-green mass of hunger. They hissed, SSSSSS, 1,000 tiny tongues tasting the air, searching for the heat of his blood. "I can smell the gold in your veins, Perseus," she whispered. Her voice was like dry silk rubbing against a stone. "I can hear the heart of a god beating in the chest of a boy." Perseus didn't blink. He watched the mirror. He watched her shadow grow long, stretching across the cracked marble floor. Then she turned. Even in the reflection, the sight was a physical blow. Her face, it was a mask of agony, pale, beautiful, and horrific. Her eyes were not eyes. They were pits of burning, pulsing, violet light. To look at them directly would be to feel the blood turn to lead, to feel the skin turn to flint, to become a monument of grief. Perseus stepped back. His heel clicked against a stone. Clack, Medusa lunged. She moved like a whip. Her brass claws tore through the air, inches from where his throat would have been. But he was a ghost. He was the shadow of a shadow. The cap of darkness kept him hidden, but it could not keep him safe from her touch. "Where are you, little thief?" she shrieked. Her voice broke. It wasn't a woman's voice anymore. It was a screech, a howl of a creature who had been alone for too long. Perseus saw his opening. In the shield, she had overextended. Her neck was exposed, a pale, slender, vulnerable arc of skin beneath the writhing nest of vipers. He didn't think, he didn't breathe. He swung the adamant blade. The sword didn't just cut, it hummed. It sang a high, blue, lethal note. Schling, the sound was clean. It was the sound of a razor through silk. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The snakes went silent. The wind died. Medusa's body stood still, a statue of flesh, before it finally, slowly, collapsed. Her head fell. It hit the floor with a heavy, wet thud, but the story didn't end. From the neck of the fallen Gorgon, something impossible happened. A fountain of light erupted, pure white, blinding, and from the blood, a creature was born, a horse, a magnificent, winged, snow-white stallion, Pegasus. He took flight, his hooves striking the ceiling, sparks flying like stars. Perseus didn't watch. He grabbed the kibices. He reached out, eyes still fixed on the shield, and shoved the severed head into the sack. He felt the weight. It was pulsing. It was still alive, in its own dark way. The snakes were still twisting inside the leather. And then the scream. From the depths of the temple, the sisters woke up, Estheino and Uriel. Their cries were enough to shatter the marble pillars. They smelled the blood. They smelled the murderer. Perseus didn't wait. He didn't look back. He kicked off the ground, his winged sandals roaring into life. Whoosh! He was a bolt of lightning, flying out of the darkness, into the sky. Behind him, the sisters followed, their brass wings beating like the drums of war. The hunt was over. The escape had just begun. The sky was no longer his friend. It was a battlefield of wind and salt, and the screeching cries of the Gorgon sisters behind him. Perseus flew. His sandals hummed, a high, vibrating drone, as he cut through the clouds like a silver needle. But the weight in the sack, the head of Medusa, it felt heavier with every mile. It was a cold weight, a pulsing, rhythmic, dark energy that bled through the leather. He reached the coast of Ethiopia, and there, the wind stopped. The ocean below wasn't blue, it was black. It was churning. It looked like a pot of oil, boiling over a slow fire, and chained to a jagged, tooth-like coral reef was a woman. Andromeda. She was as still as the statues in the Gorgon's garden. Her skin was the color of ivory. Her hair was a dark curtain, whipped by the spray of the surf. She wasn't weeping. She had no tears left. She was simply waiting for the end. Then the water broke. It wasn't a wave, it was a mountain, a wall of prehistoric, slimy, barnacle-encrusted flesh. Cetus, the beast of the abyss, its eyes were the size of shields, glowing with a pale, sickly green light. Its teeth, they were rows of broken, yellowed, ivory daggers. The sound it made was a low, guttural vibration. Grumble, roar, gurgle. It shook the very foundations of the cliffs. Perseus dived. He didn't use the sword, not yet. He was a speck in the sky, a gnat against a titan. He saw the beast open its maw. He saw the black, cavernous, stinking throat, ready to swallow the princess whole. "Look at me, you parasite!" Perseus screamed. His voice was lost in the roar of the surf, but his intent was a spear of light. He didn't pull the blade, he reached into the kibbutzes. The air grew cold, the water around the monster's head. It began to crack, it didn't freeze into ice, it froze into something else. Perseus pulled the head of Medusa out by the snakes. The vipers hissed, a sharp electric sound that pierced the roar of the monster. Even in death, those eyes, those burning, violet, petrifying pits of hate, they held the power of the gods. The light hit the monster's scales. Slowly, drip by drip, the transformation began, the green glow in the beast's eyes. It went gray, the slime on its skin. It turned to dust, the massive, lashing, powerful tail. It became a ridge of jagged granite. Zeus didn't die, it became part of the geography. A billion tons of living, breathing, hungry meat turned into a silent, cold reef of stone. The splash it made as it collapsed was a mountain falling into the sea. Crrrrak, boom. Perseus didn't wait for the spray to settle, he flew to the rocks. He slashed the chains with the adamant blade. Ping, ping, the iron fell away like straw. He caught Andromeda before she hit the wet stone. She looked at him, her eyes wide, her breath coming in short, jagged gasps. She didn't see a fisherman, she didn't see a boy. She saw a savior, with the blood of a monster on his hands and the fire of the sun in his eyes. But the journey wasn't over. The shadow of Seriphos and the face of the king who had sent him to die was calling him back. The final debt was about to be collected. The island of Seriphos smelled of celebration. It was a thick, sickening, cloying scent, roast meat, spilled wine, the laughter of men who thought they were safe. King Polydex sat at the head of the great hall. His fingers were greasy, his eyes, they were glazed with the arrogance of a man who believed the sea had swallowed his problems. He leaned toward Danae. She was a ghost, sitting at the edge of the feast. Her face was gaunt, her spirit was a candle flickering in a drafty room. "Your son is dead, Danae," the king whispered. His voice was a wet, oily serpent's hiss. "The Gorgon has him. He is a statue at the edge of the world. Now, look at me, look at your new master." The doors of the hall didn't open, they were kicked. Boom, the sound was a thunderclap. The laughter died. Instantly, a silence, heavy as a tombstone, fell over the room. Standing in the threshold, drenched in salt and shadow and destiny, was Perseus. He didn't look like a fisherman, he looked like a storm that had taken the shape of a man. Polydex stood up, his cup of wine hit the floor. Clatter, splash, the purple liquid spread across the marble like a fresh wound. "You," the king gasped. "How?" Perseus walked forward. Every step was a drumbeat. Thump, thump, thump. He didn't pull his sword, he didn't reach for his knife. He kept his hand firmly on the leather strap of the kibbutzes. "I have brought your gift, Polydex," Perseus said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a razor. "I have brought the tribute you asked for." The courtiers began to jeer. They didn't see the danger. They saw a boy with a sack. "Show us," they shouted. "Show us the prize, or is it just a bag of fish?" Polydex sneered. His courage returned, fueled by the wine and the crowd. "Yes, Perseus, show us. Let us see the face of your victory." Perseus looked at his mother. "Close your eyes, Danae," he commanded. "Close them, and do not open them until the world goes quiet." Danae obeyed. She buried her face in her hands. Then Perseus reached into the bag. He didn't hesitate, he didn't flinch. He grabbed the nest of vipers and pulled. The light that erupted from the sack was not gold. It was a cold, violet, piercing, supernatural radiance. It hit the pillars, it hit the walls, it hit the eyes of every man in the room. It was a wave of silence. Polydex didn't have time to scream. He was frozen. In mid-sneer, his hand, reaching for his sword, turned to gray, porous, cold granite. His eyes, wide with a sudden, horrific realization, became two dull, lifeless pebbles. The courtiers, the guards, the musicians, they were a forest of stone, a gallery of monsters, created by their own greed. The hall, once filled with the warmth of life, was now a cavern of cold, gray monuments. Perseus stood in the center of the stillness. He tucked the head back into the sack. The weight was gone, the debt was paid. But the prophecy, the one from the bronze room, it was still waiting. Years later, at the games in Larissa, Perseus threw a discus. It was a heavy, bronze, spinning wheel. The wind caught it, it veered, it sailed into the crowd and struck an old man who had fled his kingdom to escape his fate. King Acrisius. As the old king lay dying in the dust, he looked up at the hero. He saw the face of his grandson. He saw the golden rain. In the boy's eyes, the circle was closed. Perseus did not rule by the sword, he ruled by the light. He gave the head of Medusa to Athena, and the goddess placed it, forever, upon her shield. The fisherman's son, the child of the bronze chamber, had become a star, and in the night sky he still shines.